Good evening, everybody. Come on in, grab a chair, make yourself comfortable. A few years are referring to this as the old Squantum School. It's good to be with everybody. I know that early last fall we had a meeting here in the community to discuss the proposed new Squantum Elementary School and the process by which we following the state guidelines, working with the school building authority. I do have some colleagues here in government I wanted to mention tonight. I know that we have City Council from Ward 6, Bill Harris, at-large Councilor Noel DeBona, and we have school committee members Barbara Goley. Frank Santoro just finished his term on the school committee, but I've asked him to stay on the building committee. He had great experience with the Quincy High Building Committee. Kathy Hubley, also a member of the school committee. And Bruce Ayers is in session tonight. He's very interested in this project as well, being a Squantum guy himself here. So I want to acknowledge Bruce's interest in this. And I do want to say specifically that this is another stop in the process, and there's a number of steps that the school building authority lays out that we need to follow. And so this is another stop along the way. We knew from day one it was going to be a new building, but you still have to go through the process of analyzing the old building, what are the alternatives. So we have a great team that has been exploring that for us and kind of carrying it for us as well. I do want to acknowledge the building committee and our superintendent, of course, Kevin Mulvey, and Assistant Superintendent Aaron Perkins are here. They're also part of the building committee, as is Steve Silver. Where's Steve Silver, our principal? Steve, thank you. Frank and Paul are both on that building committee. Kim Wheelwright and Sue Vanitsky, both here. Great, thank you. They're serving as community members on the committee. We appreciate your input as well. Then, of course, we have PCA 360 Arrow Street, both of the vendors that we're dealing with, the architect and OPM. Also want to recognize the Commissioner of Public Buildings, Paul Hines, who's on the building committee, but he oversees all the building projects in the city. Also, Walter McDonald is serving on the building committee, serves with Paul, and Gary Cuniff, who's a Squantum guy, is also an engineer with the Public Buildings Department. So it's, as you can see, it's a collaborative effort, and I'm certainly grateful. I don't know if we have the number yet on the reimbursement rate, but we've been busy the last several years. This will be our fifth new school for the city, fourth under the school building authority. The most recent school building was the DeChristopher Farrar Learning Center, which we're in the process of slowly rolling out the opening of that. The school building authority, we did not go through that process. We did use some of the federal ARPA money that helped fund that project. Nonetheless, it's a new school that's going to serve students with autism. We're very excited about that project. I know that along the way, everybody was excited about that project. In fact, some of my folks that work the last 16 years with me have told me that's their favorite project. So I'm thrilled with that. As you know, we've done the new Quincy High, we've done the new Central, and we've done the new Southwest Middle School. So here we are tonight to talk a little bit about Squantum. Now, what we did hear quite a bit about was how, the last meeting we had some input, we had suggestion cards, people emailed us and dropped us notes after the fact, and there seemed to be a great affinity for the facade of the original building. And I think you'll be pleased with what the architectural firm has come up with to deal with that, preserving that part of the building. I think we'd all agree that there's other parts of the building that nobody will miss, but certainly that piece, that historic piece, is going to be worked into the design. So there's a number of more steps that we have to go, and I'm going to have Larry come up from Arrow Street. Before I do that, at some point along the way, we'll be going to the City Council for the full bond authorization. So we bond the authorization for the total amount of the project, but we never spend that money because the reimbursement from School Building Authority cuts that down depending on the percentage. Did we get the percentage yet, Paul? I guess we don't have it? Is that... Okay, I think Southwest was 63% reimbursement from the state on the project, and there's certain things that they don't reimburse for and do reimburse for, and it's a square footage rate that they determine, so that the rate is will be a positive thing, a great thing for the city of Quincy. As many of you probably have read in the newspapers over the years, many communities all around us have Prop 2.5 overrides to build one school or one project, one our fifth school, without having to go near the Proposition 2.5 cap. I think that speaks well of the condition, financial condition of the city and otherwise. So along the way, as we get closer, there'll be a bond issue appropriation submitted to the City Council, and Ward 6 Council Bill Harris will then carry that through the process with the City Council, through the Finance Committee meetings. I know the Ward Council has been a strong advocate of this project for the last several years, and we'll be looking forward to working with the City Council on getting the passage of that, but that will come a little later in the process. So with that, I'm going to introduce Larry from Arrow Street. They're a terrific firm. Some of you that were here the first time, I remember Larry from the last meeting, and he'll introduce his team, and we'll go through the project a bit, and then if there's some questions afterwards, Larry, myself, or somebody from the team will be able to hopefully answer them or direct them to the right person. I do want to acknowledge Doug Guttrow from the school committee who just came in as well. Thanks, Doug, for being here. Larry.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the introduction. And again, I'm Larry Spang, one of the partners at Arrow Street. We're an architectural firm in downtown Boston, and thrilled to be here again. And we appreciate everyone coming out on a really cold night. You may remember in September we were here. Oh, that's the name of a song. But in any event, that was a wonderful night. A little cold, so we do appreciate it. What we're going to do, let's see if we're going to, there we go. Okay. We have a few things to go through. We're going to try and go pretty quickly because the goal really is to hear from you folks once we present the work we've been doing. So we've been working steadily with the city, the school building committee, various members of the administration, working with some of the departments in the city and developing some ideas that we will review with you this evening, and leading to what is now known as a preferred scheme for the purposes of submission to the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority. So with that, we were thrilled to get everyone's input. You may remember we had little cards, and we loved the input. These were some various comments that people had, and it really made us feel nice to see that this is really part of the community here at Squantum, people who have been here multiple generations. And we really felt like this is an important asset for the community, and we've been certainly approaching it like that. We also asked about what you think about the future of the school. And again, some really nice ideas starting to come through, which, as the mayor indicated, we hope you'll start to see in the work we've done to date. So very much appreciate that. And at the end, you'll see we have a QR code that will take you to the school website or the school building website. And again, if you have ideas, questions, comments, please submit them, and we're happy to take those. A little bit of a difficult drawing or flow chart, but this essentially is the MSBA process. And sorry, it's a little, let's see if this is going to participate. No? Okay. We're just finishing up Module 3, which is the feasibility study. We submitted it at the end of December to the MSBA. They are reviewing it. We have another meeting with them in January and hopefully receive board approval upcoming in February. And then from here, we do schematic design. As the mayor mentioned, we will then go for funding the project. That happens both with the MSBA and the city simultaneously, which more or less is this summer. And then from there, once everyone approves it, we're off and running. We produce a set of drawings, and we're into construction. And this is a little wider understanding. Let's see if my pointer's not going to work, then we're going to get, there we go. Hopefully you guys can see it. Okay, so we are here, early January of 2024. We finished the preferred schematic report. This is all part of the feasibility study. We will do the schematic design for funding in the summer, and then design development construction documents, which is us putting together drawings for start of construction in 2025. And we did want to mention there is a goal to do some of the enabling work some utility infrastructure and other things. You may see some folks out this summer because we'd like to get some work done before the kids are back in school. A lot easier then, and we can talk about that a bit. And then likely you'll see some enabling work happening in summer of 2025. Again, that's assuming all the approvals proceed as we hope. Just to again reiterate for folks, the Squantum School site is shown here in red. There is the extension of Winslow Road through the middle of what most people think of as the park, but is actually a paper street as it's called, so it was never really developed. But you'll see this is a piece that has become important in our thinking about how to circulate and how to manage in a little better way the pickup and drop off for the school. And then back here is the park, which you'll see we are doing a little bit of work during construction there, but our basic goal is to minimize our impact on the park and return it to the way it was afterwards. So that's an important thing for everyone to think about. We did a series of options to look at all the different ways we might think about this building, and I'm not going to drag you through all of those other than to say they start with sort of an a base repair. It's called keep the existing building, repair it. If we replace one of the existing segments, two of the existing segments, replace three of the existing segments, and then build new, all new. And so we looked at those very carefully to understand the impact, the benefits, the difficulties of each of those. We sort of narrowed it down working with the school building committee and the administration, narrowed it down to really two prime options, which is doing add reno of the existing building. So here you see the 1919 building, and then wrapping a new building around it. And then here was an entirely new construction. And so we did another round of studies on those two options, really teasing them out. And in the end, as the mayor has indicated, we think you'll be pleased to see that this is the option that we're planning to go with. So more or less preserving the 1919, or the important parts of the 1919 building, and then building a brand new school around it in a way that supports the needs of the school, creates the resources for the community, but still preserving a lot of the heritage of the building. And we just did want to highlight that we went through on all of those options, looking carefully at all the different aspects of the building, the educational program, traffic, pedestrian safety site, construction phasing, et cetera. So we really did a very thorough review to end up where we are. So with that, we wanted to talk through the scheme as it is today. I will note a lot more work for us to do over the next few months, getting through the end of this spring to do what we call schematic design. So a lot of work. This will show you the basics, and then from here we do a lot more work, so a lot of time still to go on. And with that, let me introduce my coworker, Tina Suhu, who is the project manager for the project, who's going to take us through the next discussion about the preferred scheme.
Thank you, Larry, and excited to be here and to share this information with you. What you see in front of you is exactly what it says. It's a landscape concept. This is very early stages just to understand what we have in terms of area for landscaping, planting, but also keeping in mind that we are trying to preserve as many of the trees as we possibly can on the site. There are some old growth trees that are beautiful, and it is our intention to try to preserve them as best possible. For those trees that we are not able to preserve because it's going to allow for the design of the building, the placement of the building, we will replace those trees with the same number of calipers, essentially. So understanding that this is very early, this is really just to show potential, but further study will be done and continue to progress as we move along with design. Site and circulation, we heard loud and clear that that is one of the main concerns of the site as it is existing with its current conditions and how it's being operated now with the existing streets. So we're looking at, as Larry had mentioned, the paper street and how we might be able to utilize that as the main, and really moving the parent drop-off that's currently on Huckins Avenue and moving it to the paper street, which is Winslow Road. So you'll see there that that's really trying to designate that as the main parent park and drop zone, where parents are able to drive through, park, or meet their kids during dismissal. So that is dedicated, is basically allowing as much length for queuing for the parents that are dropping off or picking up. Other parts of circulation, we understand that Huckins is a busy road. There is certainly a fair amount of peak traffic in the morning, especially during drop-offs. So trying to keep that clear, but also allowing for parking. So really additional parking along Huckins and as well as along Mayflower where it's needed, because it is one of those well-used roads. But really trying to allow on-street parking and then allowing the free two-way circulation that it needs. Also looking at having separate bus and van drop-off, keeping it safe, bringing those vans and buses onto the site and creating a loop close to the building. Also staff parking, keeping in mind that there's a number of staff that arrive by car, and understanding that ample parking is necessary and important as their arrival and daily use of the school. And you'll also note that we're looking into EV charging. And then pedestrian safety is very important as part of all of the circulation for vehicular. And so you'll notice here that we're looking and making sure that there is safe crosswalks and safe sidewalks that are well marked. Site drainage and resiliency, all part of this is in terms of making sure what we're doing to the site provides proper drainage, stormwater, and infiltration, and that we're not diverting it into other parts of the neighborhood, but really trying to keep that to the site in itself. Other things that you'll notice that is trying to maximize impervious areas, so this is where landscaping and proper selection of plants is important as part of the resiliency. An emergency generators plan, so in periods when there is no power, the school will have the power that it needs to minimally run fire alarm, fire protection, keeping it secure, but also resiliency hub, looking at the gym and the cafeteria as a place for the community to come together during the time when there may be no power or when the tide is high. And so there's definitely a need for community use. And as we start to get into the building, we're looking at organizing how we might be able to organize key spaces within the building. And this is a diagram where we ended up, but we've gone through many sketches, many iterations to understand and maximize the potential of what makes the most sense for a school and for the educational program to function mostly for the students, but also for the community. And so you'll start to see where I've highlighted it in the red dashed line is that there are community spaces. We're thinking about that very carefully as it plays in with the school and community use. And from there, we're starting to lay out what the floor plan starts to look out. This is very preliminary, really still early on, but starting to allocate all the spaces that a school would need, down to the toilets, down to custodial and storage, and all the support spaces that the educational program is looking for. And there's still a whole lot more work to be done, but these are really just some early ideas of what the first floor would look like. We are looking at this to be a two-story building. There is certainly a lot of area that is necessary that the current building doesn't have. So you'll see here, this is really, again, very early in terms of the second floor, locating classrooms and support spaces, media center, art, and STEM rooms. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Larry, just talk about the, some of our exterior investigations that we started to do. There you go.
Yeah, thanks, Dina. So what you're starting to see there is the blend of the, so let me go back for a minute. A little bit the blend, you'll start to see what are known as classroom neighborhoods. So building on the idea that students are working together, blending in these purples are special needs, learning centers, things like that, that help support the students. So really providing much more resources here than currently there is space for it. It's resources that are being provided in the school, but right now you'll see it's happening in the hallways, it's happening in closets and other things. But in any event, we're excited about this next round of work. This was an early sketch we did, and we will mention there's the model up here which we've been working on, and folks are welcome to come up later and take a look at it. We love the historic character of the Squantum Peninsula. There's a lot of really interesting buildings, a lot of wonderful houses that give us ideas. You know, the original 1919 building, this was a shot from when it was originally built. And taking those and sort of blending them together, and we just wanted to show an example. Here's a project we did recently in Harvard, Mass, which was part of a historic district. And we tried to blend both the old and the new in a way that it felt familiar to folks, but also provided all the educational needs for the community. So this next round of work, the next 2, 3, 4 months, is really about us turning what is a very quick sketch into something that feels more like a building. What we're starting to look at is putting some roofs up that begin to break down the scale of the building, but at the same time provide some screening for mechanical equipment. As you'll see, also provide places for photovoltaic panels so that we're capturing energy from the sun. Beginning to think about how to take the 1919 facade and then use that as the way to create the rest of the building, so we're not trying to mimic that facade, but we're also trying to be sensitive to it. So again, very early first pass on that. This is a sketch looking down, and as you can see, this is the preserved 1919 building, and this is the new building as it wraps around with an interior courtyard, which provides light in the middle of the building, but also reduces the scale of it as well. This is a shot, so one of the things people always ask is, okay, so how do you manage to construct this while we're in school? And what we're looking at, again, a very early set of studies, is retaining the 1971 wing, supplementing that with some temporary classrooms, essentially holding class in that part of the building, turning this part of the site over to the contractor, and allowing them to, in essentially one sequence, build the entire building. And then the kids move out of here back into the new building. We take this down and fix up the site, make the parking that you saw. And so it's trying very hard to shorten the amount of construction time and to reduce the impact on the students. So again, all part of our thinking, although very preliminary at this point. Folks have asked us, well, what's it like to be in those modular classrooms? We took some teachers and parents through a tour of some that are around in the area, and I think they were well received. For many folks, you know, this kind of simple modern classroom feels good. A lot of people say, oh, it's air conditioned, I like that. But, you know, it's a temporary condition, but you know, from our minds, it doesn't really impact the students' ability to learn and to go to school here, which is important. After construction, as I mentioned, the existing building gets taken down. The last piece of the existing building gets taken down. We built a new site, parking and layout. We do some work to enhance the playground, and we restore the park and fields. So again, minimizing our impact on the existing park, and improving things like parking. I think you may have seen in one of the drawings we had a line here we're actually pulling the building back from Mayflower, and that allows us to create these little on-street parking spots, but reduces our impact on these abutters. And by pulling the building down to this side of the site, we're reducing our impact on these abutters. So again, trying very carefully to understand the impact of the new construction and minimize what we're doing there. So with that, we wanted to talk a little bit, and Tina will talk about sustainability.
And so sustainability was part of our early thinking. What you see in front of you here, the goals that were identified, that was part of initially from our educational visioning, and this is with the school and with the district to come up with these ideas. And so this has been carried on from the very beginning, from the very start. And so these are some of the things that we're looking at in terms of for the building and for the site. So you'll see here solar PV arrays. We're looking at geothermal as being a very efficient building, also as an all-electric building to reduce our carbon footprint, but also looking at incentives, like how can we capture some of the funds that's through Mass Save and as well as through the federal government. This here is really a diagram just to show you that as a whole building as well as a whole site that we're looking at solar orientation, really just understanding the microclimate that's at this site, but also understanding what are some of the opportunities that we can capture as we begin to design the building, such as daylighting, and EV charging, as I mentioned earlier, but also looking at the roofs that Larry had mentioned, how we might be able to maximize our solar arrays to reduce the energy that would be pulled off-grid. And also just really trying to understand thermal performance, building envelope, making it a robust building to reduce its energy use. Healthy indoor environment is very important, as we understand. Students spend a good amount of time within these classrooms, so having a healthy indoor environment not only means healthy materials that we're trying to specify for the building, but acoustics is a big part of it, so their learning environment is at its best. Operable windows to be able to open and bring in fresh air, but also creating some of those daylight views out into the landscape. But other things might be, just looking at how materials might bring in some natural feel with natural looking materials. But ventilation as well, as we all learned from our COVID experiences, that ventilation and bringing in fresh air and comfort is very important. As I mentioned, healthy materials is a part of it. As we begin to specify some of the materials, and we're looking at items that are not on the red list, that does not have PFAS, or either it has low VOCs or low emitting materials. Those are the things that we vet through as we consider some of the materials that we're using in schools. And then building as a teaching tool, this was one of the ideas that had come through for some of the other schools. These are actually images and photos from previous schools that we have done. Some of it could be very low cost in terms of really it's just graphic and explaining to students and to families how this building was designed, how it's functioning, what it's doing in terms of health and environment. You can see that a dashboard can be installed, and that really shows in real time how the building is functioning, what it's doing in terms of lowering its energy use. And so it really becomes a teaching tool that can be beneficial to the students and to the family. And from here, thank you for being here. We're really excited about this project and some of the next steps. As Larry had mentioned, there is a QR code here. We will continue to add progress and information to the project website as we progress through the design. Thank you. And
a couple of other items that are probably worthy of mention. I think you've picked up on that they looked at all the existing conditions, and to try to get some of that craziness off of Huckins Ave was a priority. So I think this plan is a good solid one. It's very safe. Aesthetically, we're looking at some other possibilities as well. These is kind of a wish list, not necessarily needed for the project, including looking at undergrounding the utilities on Huckins in front of the school. You know, anytime we have that chance to do that today, we like to do that. It's not easy to do and it's not cheap to do, but that's one of the things on the wish list. You saw the segmentation between the paper street, so you got the park behind it, which comes under the Park and Recreation Board, which is protected under Chapter 97 of state law. So we try to stay off of that footprint because we would have needed special legislation if we interfered with the park use. So I think by hugging the existing building, tightening up and go 2 stories, it actually gives us a lot more land around it to work with for the appropriate parking for staff and election day activities. The way they've situated the gym and the CAF for the public to use, I think is tremendous. The park itself, former park commissioner for 12 years, I love parks, I love trees. You know, we don't have any eminent domain in this project. It doesn't mean we may have some discussions with some neighbors about a potential purchase of a property or 2 that might make it a better project. But we don't need to do that. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I certainly don't want rumors coming out here tonight we're taking homes. That's not the case. As we're doing this project, it's also a public works project. It was mentioned about the drainage and the importance of controlling, diverting the drainage appropriately. You saw the underground chambers. That's important. All of the street and road work around it, everything will be upgraded to granite curves. Mayflower is a mess today, as we know. There's no parking on this side, but they park on this side. So it is a bit of a mess. So the plan that's been drawn up, I think, cleans that up nicely, allows your traffic coming and going with some parking on that site. We are making every effort to save as many trees as we can, but certainly the one outside this gymnasium, this massive oak tree, we believe we're going to be able to preserve that one with the retaining wall to keep the root structure in place. So doing everything we can to protect those trees. We can't save all of them, but as was mentioned, whatever we take out will be replaced by equal caliber size trees as well. So.
The one thing I'll add to that, you may see some drilling rigs out here this spring, because one of the things we want to do is understand how permeable the ground underneath some of these areas is. So just keep an eye out for them. And again, it's testing, not the start of construction. We'll be back to you long before we start construction to let you guys know it's coming.
I want to thank the principal, Steve, and his staff and teachers that are here. You know, we know that the most valuable part of the education is the teacher in the classroom, the staff that supports that education in the classroom. We also know that a healthy, modern, good, solid learning environment helps in that process. So I know we're excited about it, the school committee is excited about it, the superintendent's leadership team is excited about it. I know the staff out here is certainly excited about it, and so we look forward to continue this process of sharing the information. As been said, you can check in on the website from time to time. If you have any questions about any part of the process, you can reach out to my office, superintendent's office. Bill Harris, I'm sure, would direct you to the right place if you have any questions on issues as well. So if nobody has any other questions, we invite you to come up, look at the model. We'll hang around a bit. If you have any questions you don't want to ask in public, you want to talk about personally, that's fine too. So thanks for coming out. I know it's a chilly evening, but look forward to a wonderful new elementary school breaking ground in our 400th anniversary as a settlement. Pretty cool stuff. Thanks everyone for coming out.